The beeping of hospital machines was the soundtrack of my life for 3 weeks straight. Not exactly the background music I'd planned for my 35th birthday, but pancreatic complications don't exactly check your calendar before they strike. I remember staring at the ceiling tiles. 68 of them, I counted them repeatedly, when my phone lit up with a banking alert. Withdrawal, $247,000. Balance, $342. I blinked, thinking the morphine was playing tricks on my vision. I squinted, adjusted my glasses, and looked again. The numbers didn't change. Almost $250,000. Gone. Just like that. My hands trembled as I called Nathan. Straight to voicemail. Second try. Third. Fourth. Each time, that same cheerful voice. "Hey, this is Nathan. Leave a message and I'll call you back soon." But something told me he wouldn't be calling back. Not soon. Not ever. I texted Diane, my sister. "Can you check if Nathan's at home? Emergency." 32 minutes later, Diane burst into my hospital room, her face flushed, her breathing heavy like she'd run up 7 flights of stairs rather than taking the elevator. "Isla, his closet is empty. His passport is gone, and—" She hesitated, biting her lip. Isabella from accounting isn't answering her phone either. Her husband just called me, frantic. She didn't come home last night. Isabella. Of course it was Isabella. With her perfect blonde hair, her CrossFit body, and her annoying habit of touching Nathan's arm whenever she laughed at his jokes during company parties. Isabella, who sent me a fruit basket when I was admitted to the hospital. "Get well soon," the card had said. The irony wasn't lost on me now. "Did you know?" Diane asked, her voice soft but direct. "About them?" I suspected. "About this?" I gestured weakly at my phone, still displaying the banking alert. "Never." The doctor came in then, clipboard in hand, talking about recovery time and physical therapy. I nodded mechanically, like one of those dashboard bobbleheads, while my mind raced a million miles away. To Nathan and Isabella, probably on a plane right now, to our empty bank account, to 13 years of marriage, dissolved in a single electronic transaction. "Mrs. Bennett, are you listening? This is important for your recovery," the doctor said, his brow furrowed with concern. "Recovery," I repeated, the word tasting bitter in my mouth. "Yes, I'm very interested in recovery, especially the financial kind." He looked confused. Diane shot me a warning glance. That night, after Diane left and the nurses finished their rounds, I lay in that sterile hospital bed, pain medication dulling my physical discomfort, but doing nothing for the hollow ache spreading through my chest. The betrayal was complete. Emotional, physical, financial. The man who had promised to stand by me, in sickness and in health, had chosen the exact moment of my greatest vulnerability to disappear with another woman and our life savings. I should have cried. That's what people do, right? They cry when their world collapses. But instead, something cold and sharp crystallized inside me. Something that whispered, "He thinks he's won. He thinks you're weak, trapped in this hospital bed, with no money, no strength, and no options." But Nathan had always underestimated me, always seen what he wanted to see. The supportive wife, the quiet partner, the woman who gave up her own ambitions to help build his dreams. What he never saw, what he never bothered to see, was that before I was his wife, I was Alexandra Isla Morgan, the woman who graduated top of her class in business law, the woman who specialized in asset protection and financial intelligence before stepping back to support his career, the woman who learned from her divorced mother never to be financially vulnerable, the woman who had a secret account he knew nothing about. As darkness fell outside my hospital window, I reached for my phone again. Not to call Nathan. There was nothing left to say to him. Instead, I opened a password-protected app and checked a balance. Untouched, substantial, and completely unknown to my husband. "Game on, Nathan," I whispered to the empty room. "You should have made sure I was dead before you tried to bury me." The day I was discharged from the hospital was the day I truly understood the depth of Nathan's betrayal. Diane drove me home. Well, to what used to be home. The colonial-style house that we'd bought 8 years ago stood quiet and partially empty. He'd taken his clothes, his precious vinyl collection, his grandfather's watches, and oddly, all the good kitchen knives. Left behind were the heavy furniture pieces, my belongings, and every framed photo of us, each one lying face down, as if he couldn't bear our frozen smiles judging him on his way out. "Do you want me to stay?" Diane asked, hovering by the door, her eyes taking in the subtle chaos. "No," I said, lowering myself carefully onto the couch. "I need to be alone right now." Alone. The word felt different now. Before, alone meant peaceful evenings when Nathan was on business trips. Now it meant abandoned, discarded, left behind like the furniture he couldn't fit in his luggage. I opened my laptop and began the grim inventory of our financial life. Credit card statements revealed the breadcrumbs of his betrayal. Hotel charges in cities where he claimed to be alone. Dinner receipts for two at restaurants too expensive for just colleagues. A jewelry purchase 3 days before Isabella's birthday. The signs had been there all along, disguised as business expenses that I'd trusted him to manage. The joint account, now nearly empty, showed the final withdrawal had been made at 4:17 a.m. on the day after my emergency surgery. While doctors were telling me I was lucky to be alive, my husband was emptying our life savings and preparing to start a new life without me. Our investment portfolio had been liquidated 2 weeks earlier. The vacation property in Colorado was listed for sale, with paperwork bearing what appeared to be my signature. A forgery, but a good one. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Is this Mrs. Bennett?" a man's voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "Jonathan Reeves from Capital One. We've noticed some unusual activity on your credit accounts. Several large purchases in the Cayman Islands within the past 24 hours. The Caymans. Of course. A tax haven. Nathan wasn't just running away. He was planning to disappear completely. After freezing the credit cards, I sat in stunned silence, my surgical wound throbbing in rhythm with my heartbeat. The physical pain was nothing compared to the realization that the man I'd loved for 13 years had been meticulously planning my financial demise while I fought for my life in a hospital bed. The doorbell rang. I opened it to find a courier with an envelope. Inside was a single page, divorce papers. No note, no explanation. Just his name signed at the bottom and a sticky arrow pointing to where I should sign mine. My phone pinged with an email notification. From Nathan. "Isla, I know this comes as a shock, but we both know our marriage has been over for years. We've been living separate lives, just going through the motions. Isabella and I have found something real. I didn't plan for it to happen, but sometimes life takes unexpected turns. I've taken my share of our assets to start over. The house is yours. It's the least I can do. Please sign the papers. It's better this way. N. My share? My share. The house had a mortgage that was now underwater after the market downturn. The property taxes alone would be $12,000 next month. He hadn't left me my share. He'd left me with debt and obligations while taking all the liquid assets. I called my in-laws, thinking they should hear from me before rumors started. Nathan's mother answered. "Oh, Isla," she said, her voice unnaturally bright. "Nathan told us everything. We're so sorry about the divorce, but sometimes these things happen. He said you two grew apart while you were focused on your health issues." Health issues? I had been hospitalized for acute pancreatitis after months of unexplained symptoms. Symptoms that started, I now realized, around the time Nathan began staying late at the office with Isabella. "He mentioned you agreed to the financial arrangement," his father added, apparently on the extension line. "Said you were being very reasonable about it all." The final piece clicked into place. Nathan hadn't just stolen our money and run off with Isabella. He'd crafted a complete narrative, one where I was the failing, sickly wife who graciously stepped aside so he could find happiness. One where I had agreed to be left penniless. "I see," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "And did Nathan mention where he and Isabella were planning to set up their new life?" "They're touring properties in Grand Cayman this week," his mother said proudly. "Nathan's opening a consulting firm there. Such a wonderful opportunity." After hanging up, I sat motionless, the divorce papers in one hand, my phone in the other. The betrayal was complete. He had rewritten our entire history, poisoned my relationship with his family, and set me up as the villain or pitiful ex-wife in his heroic journey to new love. I gave everything to him, I whispered to the empty room, and he discarded me like nothing. 3 days after coming home from the hospital, I stood under the shower, letting hot water cascade over my surgical scar. Physical healing would take weeks, but I didn't have the luxury of waiting. My mind was already plotting, calculating, preparing. Most people, when betrayed, react from emotion. They scream, they cry, they beg, they threaten. But emotion wouldn't get back my money or my dignity. Strategy would. I dressed carefully in the most professional outfit that fit my still swollen body and drove to a small office building downtown. The sign on the door read, "Mackenzie Forbes, Private Investigator." "You look like hell," said Mackenzie, my college roommate turned PI, as I eased into the chair across from her desk. "Feel worse," I admitted. "But I need your help." I laid out everything. The affair, the theft, the manipulation. Mackenzie took notes, her expression darkening. "The Caymans, huh? Classic. But he made mistakes, Isla. They always do." "What's my first move?" I asked. "Document everything. Bank records, medical records proving you were incapacitated when the transfers happened. Then we follow the money." She leaned forward. "But there's something else you should know. Isabella quit her job at the accounting firm last month." "So?" "So she was handling the Jensen Hotels account. The same account that reported a $1.2 million accounting error last quarter." My mouth went dry. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying your husband didn't just run off with your money. He and his girlfriend might have embezzled from her biggest client. And they might think they're in the clear because all eyes would be on the accounting firm, not on them personally." I felt the first spark of something that might have been hope. "Can you prove it?" "With your help? Maybe." For the next 2 weeks, while my body struggled to heal, my mind worked overtime. Each morning, I played the part of the abandoned, struggling wife. I called Nathan's parents, weeping about my confusion. I reached out to our friends, asking if they'd heard from him. I even posted a plaintive message on social media about working through this difficult time. But each afternoon I met with Mackenzie, building our case piece by piece. I had authorized Mackenzie to install spyware on our home computer months ago. Not because I suspected an affair, but because Nathan had been acting strangely, making secretive phone calls, and I'd feared he might be gambling again. The spyware had captured his passwords, his emails, his search history. It had recorded his communications with Isabella about their new start, their plans to disappear after securing the funds. Most importantly, it had captured evidence of their scheme to systematically drain the Jensen Hotels account, disguising the theft as accounting errors spread across multiple properties. Meanwhile, I made an appointment with Victor Zhang, a ruthless divorce attorney known for handling high-profile cases. When I walked into his office, he looked skeptical. "Mrs. Bennett, my retainer is $25,000. From what you've told me about your financial situation." I slid a certified check across his desk. His eyebrows rose. "I have resources my husband doesn't know about," I said simply. Victor smiled. "Tell me everything." What Nathan never knew, what I'd never had reason to tell him, was that when my grandmother died 5 years ago, she left me a significant inheritance. Not life-changing millions, but enough. Enough that I'd opened a separate account, one that required in-person verification for any withdrawals. An old-fashioned safety net that couldn't be accessed online or by phone. "My grandmother grew up during the Depression," I explained to Victor. "She never trusted banks completely and taught me to always keep something in reserve. 'Men come and go,' she used to say, 'but a woman needs her own money.'" Victor nodded. "Smart woman. Now, about these Cayman properties they're viewing." "I have the listing details," I said, sliding over printouts Mackenzie had obtained, "and their hotel reservations, flight information, and a recording of Isabella discussing their plans to set up residency to avoid extradition." Victor stared at me. "Mrs. Bennett, most of my clients come to me broken and unprepared. You're neither." "I was broken," I admitted. "For about 6 hours. Then I got angry, and now I'm just focused." That night, I received a text from an unknown number. "You look better than expected for someone just out of the hospital. Love the blue dress you wore to the lawyer's office today. N." He was having me watched. Good. Let him think I was just meeting with a divorce attorney, making predictable moves. Let him underestimate me one more time. I texted back, "We need to talk about the divorce terms." His reply came quickly, "Nothing to discuss. Sign the papers. Any attempt to fight me will cost more than you have left." I smiled at my phone. Nathan thought he knew exactly what I had left. He had calculated everything, except the possibility that I had always been 10 steps ahead of him. On what would have been our 14th wedding anniversary, I boarded a flight to Grand Cayman. Not for nostalgia or confrontation, but because timing in warfare is everything. Nathan and Isabella had been on the island for 3 weeks, living in luxury at the Ritz-Carlton while shopping for villas. According to Mackenzie's sources, they were finalizing the purchase of a $3.2 million beachfront property the next day, using a shell company they'd established with my money and the embezzled funds. The humid Caribbean air hit me like a wall as I exited the airport. My surgical scar still pulled uncomfortably when I moved too quickly, a physical reminder of what had been taken from me. But today wasn't about pain. Today was about justice. I checked into a small hotel on the opposite side of the island from Nathan's luxury resort. No need to announce my presence just yet. Then I met with Calvin Bowers, a local attorney Victor had connected me with. "Everything is in place," Calvin confirmed, his British Cayman accent lending gravity to his words. "The banking commission has been briefed. The documentation is compelling. They're ready to move on your signal." "And Jensen Hotels?" "Their security team arrived yesterday. They're coordinating with local authorities." That evening, I donned a blonde wig, large sunglasses, and a flowing resort dress, anonymous tourist attire, and took a taxi to the restaurant where I knew Nathan and Isabella would be dining. Mackenzie's intelligence was flawless as usual. I sat at the bar, angled away from their table but with a perfect view in the mirror behind the bottles. They looked happy, tanned. Nathan had his hand on Isabella's, their fingers intertwined on the white tablecloth. They were celebrating something. Champagne flutes clinked as I watched in the reflection. My phone vibrated. "In position. M." I sent back a single word, "Now." What happened next unfolded like a choreographed ballet. Through the restaurant's open sides, I watched 3 dark SUVs pull up. Men in suits emerged, some in the sharp attire of financial crimes investigators, others with the unmistakable bearing of law enforcement. They entered calmly, professionally. No scene, no dramatics. Just a quiet approach to the table where my husband and his lover were savoring their lobster bisque. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could see Nathan's face transition from confusion to shock to something like terror. Isabella began crying almost immediately, her mascara tracking down her cheeks as she shook her head vehemently. Nathan looked around wildly as if searching for an escape route. His eyes swept past me without recognition. The blonde stranger at the bar, sipping a martini, merely part of the background to his unfolding nightmare. When they led Nathan and Isabella out in handcuffs, I paid my bill and walked to the beach. The moon cast a silver path across the dark water. For the first time in months, I took a deep breath without pain. My phone rang. It was Mackenzie. "It's done," she said without preamble. "Financial Crimes has frozen all their accounts. The evidence was overwhelming. Jensen Hotels is pressing charges for the full $1.2 million, and get this, the Cayman authorities found 3 more shell companies. This wasn't their first rodeo." "What about our money?" I asked, my toes digging into the cool sand. "Already in process. The judge was particularly moved by the hospital records showing the funds were taken while you were in critical condition. The accounts should be unfrozen and returned to your control within 48 hours. The next morning, I walked into the police station where Nathan was being held pending transfer back to the United States. I had discarded the wig, but kept the sunglasses. Some moments deserve a dramatic reveal. Nathan's face when I removed those glasses was worth every cent I'd paid Mackenzie. "Surprise," I said softly. "Isla," he whispered, his face ashen. "How did you find out? Follow the money? Get here?" So many questions, Nathan. Too bad you never bothered to ask them before. Like, I wonder if my wife noticed the missing Jensen Hotels funds. Or, I wonder if my wife has evidence of all our conversations about defrauding her and the company. You don't understand. he began, desperation in his eyes. Isabella and I. Save it. I cut him off. Isabella turned on you an hour after processing. Apparently she claims the embezzlement was all your idea, that you manipulated her, that she was afraid of you. His face crumpled. She's lying. We planned everything together. I smiled. I know, and I have recordings to prove it. The color drained from his face completely. You recorded us? How long have you? Long enough, Nathan. Since you started staying out late. Since you started hiding your phone. I didn't know what I was looking for then. Gambling, drinking, affairs, it didn't matter. What mattered was that I knew something was wrong. And unlike you, I believe in protecting what's mine. I stood to leave, then paused. Oh, and those divorce papers? I had Victor draft new ones. You'll be served this afternoon. I don't think you'll find the terms favorable, but given the circumstances, they're remarkably generous. I'd sign them if I were you. It's the least of your problems now. As I walked away, he called after me. I'll fight this, all of it. You can't prove intent. I turned back one last time. But I can prove opportunity, motive. I can prove you accessed accounts while I was under anesthesia. And most damning of all, I can prove you purchased one-way tickets before my unexpected medical emergency. His eyes widened. That's right, Nathan. The DA is very interested in whether my pancreatic issues were entirely natural or if they had help from something added to my evening tea. The tea you suddenly insisted on making for me every night, starting 3 months ago. I didn't know if he had poisoned me. The doctors had found nothing conclusive, but the fear in his eyes told its own story. Goodbye, Nathan. Enjoy prison. 2 years passed with the steady rhythm of healing. The physical scars faded faster than the emotional ones, but both eventually receded into background memories, present but no longer painful. Nathan received 8 years for financial fraud, with additional charges related to my suspicious illness, still pending as toxicology experts battled in court. Isabella testified against him for a reduced sentence of 3 years. The Jensen Hotel's money was mostly recovered, and my personal accounts were fully restored, with interest. I sold the colonial house. Too many shadows lingered there, and bought a modern apartment overlooking the city park. Clean lines, open spaces, huge windows that let in light from all directions. No hiding places for secrets or regrets. On warm evenings, I often sat on my balcony with Diane, sharing a bottle of wine and quiet conversation. She had been my rock through everything. The trials, the media attention, the days when getting out of bed seemed impossible. Have you heard from his parents? She asked one such evening. I shook my head. Not since the sentencing. I think they still believe I somehow framed their perfect son. Their loss, she said firmly. And what about the support group? Still going? The support group had been my salvation. Other women and men who had survived financial abuse and betrayal. Now I helped lead it, sharing my story as both warning and inspiration. Every Tuesday, I confirmed. We have 3 new members this month. You saved yourself, you know, Diane said suddenly. Most people would have crumbled. Had I saved myself? Or had I simply been prepared in ways Nathan never expected? Perhaps grandmother's Depression-era paranoia about keeping separate finances hadn't been paranoia after all, but wisdom passed down through generations of women who understood that self-reliance wasn't just a virtue, but a necessity. Last month, I had launched a small consulting firm specializing in personal financial protection, teaching others how to guard themselves against the Nathans of the world. The firm was growing faster than I could handle alone. My phone chimed with a text message from Mackenzie. Drinks tomorrow? Got something to tell you about our mutual friend in federal housing. I smiled. Nathan must have made yet another unsuccessful appeal. His disbelief that his perfectly constructed plan could unravel so completely had never faded. In his mind, I was still the trusting, naive wife who would never suspect, never fight back, never win. That evening, I opened the safe hidden behind my bedroom painting, another grandmother lesson. Always keep important documents where only you can access them. Inside was a single envelope containing the final report from the private lab I'd hired to analyze samples of my hair taken during my hospitalization. samples that showed elevated levels of compounds that had no business being in my system. I hadn't submitted this evidence to the prosecutor yet. Some days, I wondered if I ever would. Nathan was already serving time. The financial crimes had been enough. Did I need the satisfaction of additional charges? Or was it enough to know the truth myself? The truth was both simple and profound. He had underestimated me in every possible way, and in doing so, he had lost everything. I closed the safe, returned to my balcony, and watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Life wasn't perfect. Trust came harder now, but freedom, financial, emotional, physical, tasted sweeter than I ever could have imagined. He didn't just empty our account, I whispered to the fading light. He emptied himself of everything that mattered, and in losing everything, I found myself. I raised my glass to the horizon, to new beginnings, to the strength that comes from being broken open and rebuilding yourself, not as you were, but as you were always.